What's going down, everyone? And if you're here, you're for the AMD patch notes, number 19.9.2, which was an optional that was pretty much rushed in, I'd like to think. It was like almost less than about 6 to 5 days ago, we were getting just a regular patch. But let's go ahead and start as we normally do. I wanted to just showcase the things, but let's do our runs just really quick with Firestrike and some other ones on just like this normal, no OC'd. So like at that portion in time, let me go ahead and pull up the Radeon, and you'll notice that I have the display. I utilized the Radeon overlay in order to actually supply us like some pretty cool temperature points, which I thought would be really, well, down to the point, just a little bit more interfacive with these streams that we're showcasing here. So with that being said, going into the game, the Wattman after global settings, and bam. You can see that it was unsuccessful, which is kind of cool that I'm going to go ahead and hit a reset. Yes, I'd like to reset the Wattman so it's at its default profile, and we should be good. That means everything is at base. Kind of glad I did reset that, because from time to time it does mess up. It's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the Wattman. It's not as stable as I would like it to be. But with that being said, let's go ahead and pull back our 3D mark, and let's go ahead and start with the Firestrike. And we'll do Time Spy and 2 of the extremes, and in between when we're running these tests, I'll go ahead and hop over to what I have directly for the patch notes that I can pull up on the other side of the screen, which shouldn't be too bad. Now, a lot of fun things is now we're finally getting into the overlays of where we're coming down to standpoints of the new NVIDIA card coming directly to us, as well as the portion of a newer AMD card. At least there's winds of an NVIDIA card, not everything official. But I know for sure the ray tracing abilities of what they're going to be giving us inside of a situation are going to be a lot more forthcoming in the next month or so as we get closer. So as you can see, our frame rate's a little bit more displayable on top. We're hitting roughly about 112 going to 128. You can see everything else is kind of within the normal portions. Now it's saying that the endpoint of the GPU is around 49 degrees versus where my lovely thermostat above me is taking in the portion of the die on the back. I found a really cool angle since it's exposed on my plate for the founder's card of the Radeon 7. I figured why not, because it was the hottest spot of the card. So that means between that and the front plate there's roughly about a 10-degree variant of Celsius. And you can see that in a very dim lit background, we're doing about 60 on the decibels, give or take, as we kind of can turn around. But with that being said, let me see if I can go ahead and pull up our web talk real quick. Let's see if it goes to it. It may not want to. See if I can make it work. Let's see here. Properties. Yes, I can make it work. And voila. I just need to expand, and we should be in business. There we are. And we have our Wattman ready and all doing some stuff in the background as we get into it. So right now, one of the bigger portions that it added as we are getting on the eve of Borderlands. This is kind of nice that they actually pushed this because Borderlands is tonight for me. I'm going to be playing it on console instead of PC Master Race. I should be playing it on PC, but all my buddies are on the console, so I figured why not. So with Borderlands, it's offering a 16% FPS improvement on the Radeon RX 5700. That's pretty good. That's pretty psycho, rather. And I have some Borderlands stock, and we get into the eve of the situation. With the Radeon Adrenalin software and the 19.9.2, it is offering that from the last previous driver when compared on Borderlands. So this might be explicitly just a Borderlands exclusive one. Now, the Radeon imaging sharpening is now available on the RX 590, the RX 580, and the RX 570, including also the RX 480 and 470. These are the situations that we'll get with the Radeon introduction points on the desktop with products for the DirectX 12 and Vulkan applications. Within the situation of what it's been able to fix, as we can kind of get into some overlays, and I'm going to figure out what's going on with our screen. It seems like it may not like the Radeon overlay. Oh no, it does. It's just weird. It looks like it timed out. We'll figure that out in a second as they go into the news. Let's see. With the VSync enabled and the FPS may be locked on 30 some displays and refresh in the rates. So if you might be not exactly desirably where you want the refresh rate, and I'm starting to think that this might have failed, though I did start to understand that there was failures between Firestrike and other testing last time we did it directly on the last patch note, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's still an issue with this and we have to run Time Strike. So I'm going to go ahead and close it and see if it'll allow me to do that. It may not. I'll see what happens as we continue down on the list of stuff. Now, for as far as the system instability, I may be experiencing some on the RX 5700 series cards as the system configuration when watching the content when web browsing. And I've noticed that that's even on the Radeon 7 card. That's just a brass situation. It's just probably more prevalently noticeable on the Radeon RX 5700 because it hasn't got a lot of line of codes. Looking for the audio and the clip capturing in the Radeon Live may be corrupted or grabbed when the desktop and recording is enabled, and you'll hear me say this over and over again. Probably don't utilize the Radeon Live. It's always on this list. You would probably have a better standpoint utilizing OBS or another product software that I think would probably be a little bit more better for the applications of open broadcast sourcing. So, I mean, nothing against Radeon. It just seems like, no offense, I've never seen that not on the list. And, like, it's always been there. Alright, cool. I was able to force it. It seems like it crashed. I'm going to go ahead and bring us back over to the Radeon overlay and see if we can't see. So you can see that program, and it did this error, which I wanted to bring up again. So basically what I'm going to have to do is reset the computer in order for this to physically work again. But let's go ahead and go back over to the web, as I MacGyver my way to it working successfully in the situation. So as that situation goes into gameplay, and as we looked into the point of the clip and the relive being the issues with inside of the last portion of what the gameplay was offering us at that game and play, we're looking at like a few other situations. The Radeon settings may list the core clocks are not available with the Radeon 5700 in the graphics configuration. Enabling an enhanced sync may cause games and applications or system crashes on the RX 5700. So it seems like there's a lot of issues that they fixed with the 5700. But now looking at what is known and what is out there, you have the shadows die twice may exhibit textural corruption during the last part of the game. Toggling HDR may cause system instability during games when utilizing the Radeon Live and is enabled. Discord may experience some application hangups on the RX 5700. The graphics card products when the HW acceleration is enabled. Now, for everyone that is new to the channel and you're wanting the patch notes, they are linked down below if you happen to be in a rush for as far as the situation of getting everything underway. It seems like the computer, everything booted back up real well. It just seems like that was just, it may just be the issue of, like, I'm going to be honest, it seems like, I'm going to run a Time Spy and see if that works, because I think Time Spy did work last time where it was fine, which means Firestrike's not enabled, and that means we'll test it against this update and the last update to see if it fixes and enables that portion of it. But as we continue on, and we have the last portion of what are known portions of, which is Discord, and that affecting that situation, the application may hang up on the RX on the enabled portions. Now, the display artifact may exhibit on some 57 Hz display configuration on the RX 5700 series card in the system configuration. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 may experience some shuddering during system configuration, and in OBS, which is your open broadcast source, may experience some frame rate drops or shuddering utilizing and using the AMF encoding some system configurations. Well, that just means it's stream units on there, therefore not working really well. Because I've always had really good stream units when it comes down to the cores that they use for the encoding to send out to other sources. For like the upload portion of it directly is just really good on NVIDIA's products. I've never had an issue. And then diving into the Radeon 7, I thought I was going to be getting a very more robust, and it seemed like they were just kind of like learning how to configure, because the email I got from directly from AMD was like their goals were to get to it, but they had not hit that yet. Let's see, the open portion of the broadcast source was the last thing, and then the HDR overscan and underscan option may be missing on the Radeon settings on the AMD Radeon 7 system configuration when the primary display is set to 60. Shuddering may be experienced when the Radeon FreeSync when you enable to the 240Hz displays in the RX 5700, which has been a known issue since its launch. And then the AMD Radeon 7 may experience some elevated memory clocks and or idle on desktop, which was kind of always something that they kind of do. Now the footnotes is the RS 312 testing conduction by the AMD labs in September 12th on Borderlands from the Direct 12 at a badass preset. That's hilarious. They're getting some Borderlands humor in there. At 1080p resolution, performance maybe varies on resolution settings. So there we might be seeing like a bigger portion, because the 10%, I'm glad that they put that at 1080p, because maybe the last few tests they've been doing, and I've been doing it 4K, it just differs, but I also do run the regular strikes just to see what's going down. So, with that being said, and we've covered our patch directly inside there, let's go ahead and go back over, and let's go ahead and run our tests together. Because quite frankly, I do want to run these tests, but I don't want them to continue to crash. This is just our regular time spy, nothing super special past it being a normal time spy. Let's see if the Radeon application portion will display on top. That could be another reason why. It's the first time I ever played with it, so it could have just been an issue in general standpoint, because I do think that they have been on the list from time to time. You see that they're not always working, unfortunately. But I have a feeling it'll work perfectly fine. We'll be able to line these, do the install, and then slam out a few portions of like where the day is going to go for as far as the way we're going to test the Radeon updates. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get some really cool, like, experimentation on this situation. I think since the last one in the introduction, it was more tailored, just for, like, probably the RX 5700, so I'm hoping this will be a nice one for everyone, not just, like, my cards or other people's cards. It would be, like, across the whole board. It would be a little bit easier for us to kind of see. Now, I'm assuming that it was the Radeon bar just crashing, because if you look right now, at this point in time, like, my introduction of the display is now just down below where it's showing like the portion of the scoring points. So we're going to have to rely on what it basically tells us in the readout, and we'll try the fire strike right after just to see if it actually cooperates. If it doesn't cooperate, then it's telling me that A, this update is garbage for 3D marks, and unfortunately if you're utilizing 3D marks for certain applications and it's crashing, you probably should update after we test it out in this update. If not, then your prior update to this, which is your 19.8.2, would be your only option besides the true standard, which is the 19.5.2, which came out roughly in like the portion of, I want to say May, give or take. That should be like the 5th month, 2nd week, if the code stands correct with that one. But because all 19 is the year, so next year it'll be 20. It'd be cool if that like that portion goes. Then I'll be like, we're going to 21 because it's the 21st century. Like, yeah, you jerks. All fun aside, as we kind of get into this gameplay of where we're at in this situation, and where this is going to be a little bit more cool news, because ray tracing cores are now finally being put on Radeon cards in the general standpoint of the future portion of this day. So I'm really excited to see exactly where we're going to go with the ray tracing being on for Team Red nowadays, for AMD taking like the, I guess, the throne and showcase room to see what they can actually do. Because if they produce something that's really decent at a decent price, it's not going to be too far from the truth that that situation will arise where they're actually able to exist on the playing market. Now, also, too, my bad if there's like a big buzzing sound in the background. Like it is really, really hot where I'm at, so I have the AC on so it doesn't affect the computer test, because usually it's right around like 72 degrees, and it was like almost like a sweltering 90, and I was like, okay, I gotta balance this out to bring it to at least ambient room temperature. So that's why if you hear me talking and it sounds like there's a big Yeti yelling at me in the background, that would be why. Normally I try to keep these very quiet and sound mute them, but that could be something that's coming into gameplay as it goes into it. We won't do any extreme overclocks. My portion is just trying to test A/B testing portions before and after of this update. So we're just basically going to do 2 extremes, and since this doesn't have ray tracing on it, we don't have to run Port Royal, which should be fun. I always like running. That would be great to be able to run those with the Radeon card. Like, that'd be so bitchin'. So there goes our base. It actually worked. At that portion in time, let's go ahead and see if we can make a fire strike run, because that's going to be a big setback and or move forward in time-wise, depending on if we can actually physically run a time strike. If a time strike is the only thing we can run, then time strike, Ultra would be the only other test that we can try between two updates, which really isn't that fair because we're running two direct 12 basically portions versus like trying to mix it up and seeing like what the variants can come from it. Depending on what software people are utilizing, not every single game or program is designed directly on them. That's why trying different applications will yield different results, as the acceleration of the utilization of the hardware will come into place as technology utilizes its running ground. But so far so good. It seems like it didn't even stutter, didn't come into place. I think it might have been the Radeon overlay that just couldn't handle it, unfortunately. And for me, I'm not really too bummed out. It was nice to know that it was physically there, that it could work. I was wanting that because like with NVIDIA's, it's so easy. They allow you just to select one thing and put it in each quadrant and quarter. So it's like displaying in FPS is pretty nice, unless I want to get like an I guess an add-on program that can just be plugged in. But that might affect the scoring test. I figured why not? It's on the card, make it utilize it. But no, the Radeon card maybe after a few updates. But so far so good. Seems like our fire strike tests are panning out quite well. It is really interesting though having like my Radeon card directly inside of my Theadripper, having an AMD proprietary system. I do notice that the Radeon card becomes a little bit more. It seems like it can run better in a lot of like applications. I mean, it kind of makes sense though, because AMD is going to be building these on like top portion like processors that theirs, which is in their own Infinity Fabric. So it running on other systems isn't bad. Don't get me wrong, but there is a smoothness that comes with it that makes it look a little bit easier to the eyes. Yeah, that's not that bad. Straight out the gate was like almost like 100, give or take, for that portion. The physics test is actually pretty easy for my processor, which is really hilarious because when I went to go on top of the Wattman layout where it tells you the suggested thing, it actually told me that my processor wasn't set up for a certain like 3D marks, and I was like, wait, what? Like it excels at 3D mark really well. It told me and recommended a 3900. And I was like, well, I did want that, don't get me wrong, but I kind of am waiting for the 3950X, which is coming out this is September. It's like within like a week or two or something like that, give or take, more towards the end. And then that's when they're supposed to be releasing with the Theadripper line, like dates of release, not necessarily them being released. It'd be nice, but we're thinking maybe November when we might actually physically see. Oh, and there it did again. So there is something wrong with Fire Strike and damn, the update. Okay, so if I can try to get inside of here, which I don't think it's going to allow me to do. That is a bummer. Bummer. No, I don't want to turn on too many AMD things. I think it will be kind of crappy. So as I suspected, this is not good. So we're going to go ahead and close. See if I can't force this really fast. Or actually, you know what? Let's just do the install. If this is already acting like this at this portion time, I'm just going to reset. We're going to do our last portion, and then we'll just do the direct portion. But for most people that are here and you're wanting the news, let's go ahead and go pan back over. We can go over some finite details as I'm doing some crazy stuff. Yes, I would like you very much to reset. I know Windows, it's baffling to you when I say that I want you to reset, and then you're just like, are you sure? I'm like, I wouldn't have pressed reset unless I wanted you to reset. Anyways, it seems like Borderlands is like one of the bigger major players of the situation as we reboot back over. It is a bummer that it seems like that 19.9.1 does not work at all for Fire Strike and or Fire Strike Ultra, so it will be nice to see what ends up happening with Fire Strike once we do the install. I'm thinking that it actually will work. I think probably one of the issues here is that something's happening with inside that card that they hit a line of code of that's just not working for it anymore, which is really strange, which means it's geared more towards the direct connection of that, which is really interesting. I've never seen like anything in particularly mimic that, so guess we'll find out very shortly for most people. As you can see that the layouts right there are showcasing what has changed and whatnot, so let's go ahead and go back over. The Theadripper is back up and running. Something looks off about the colors too, but I don't know, I'll get into that later. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go to our benchmarks and we're going to run an extreme. Because if I can only get 2 tests, I might as well make one 4K and the other 1080p, which we'll reference ourselves as before we do the install. So, kind of a bummer that the 19.91 was a big issue. But if it worse comes to worse, we can physically get ourselves into like a nice little gameplay point of what's going down. Okay, let's see here. What are we going to get ourselves into? So not bad. I mean, this card usually always runs roughly around like 30 right at the gate with this. Like, it wasn't super like that when it first launched in like the very beginning, like almost 6 to 8 months ago when it first dropped. It's kind of a bigger issue for as far as the way the card would react to certain things. But it is kind of like one of those things with later on where it's like I feel like they will tune it out. This card seems like the longevity will be there, but it doesn't seem like it's their main focal point right now. Or as far as the way the card's operating, I feel like they probably won't even get into that until like later on down the road. For as far as like the way that things will operate. Right on, we cleared the first test. None of this should be an issue. I feel like with the lovely portion of just having the regular time strike, it won't be as bad. Like, versus this, it's not going to trigger anything. There's something about time strike it likes. Like, Time Spy is able to just like hit that, and then Fire Strike just does nothing at that portion in time. Completely discombobulates it. Crazy to see how much 4K affects all the cards when they're like doing like raw 4K movement and all this other stuff. They're just like, yeah, we can't handle anything, but it's okay. I think a lot of these portions of like the reason why I like to test these is to see like where the improvements are and where they've come from. I mean, if this was almost like 5 months ago, we'd barely be pushing 20 FPS coming around that corner, versus now it's like a solid 30. So it's like there are drastic improvements in what they're getting into, but it just takes time. That reminds me of Fallout every time I see it. It always makes me want to go get a Pip-Boy to explore some wasteland. Alright, coming in at the tail end, we are finished and we will do our install directly right after this. We just need a base test or two. This is where my processor does run, but it doesn't run as good. It is funny though, when I try this on my Intel, it's just like, yeah, you think this is a joke, huh? I feel like the error sign in the background is probably the best description of this test. It's just like, why would you do this to a processor unless you wanted it to blow up? I really don't want my processor to blow up, but I feel like this is the most excruciating point you can do We're just like, yes, you're going to move all this stuff around and then make these other things multiply into other things and then move with an FPS that I want to be smooth. And you're just like, you're crazy, right? Like, that's not even possible. We'll try, but that's not even possible. But this is also a really good test if you're trying to overclock and seeing the stability. You will see if your computer crashes. If you don't overclock it right, it will just trash itself. It's trying so hard. Should be ending very shortly, and then we'll get our test results. Alright, so not the best thing in the world, but not the worst thing in the world. Let's go ahead and do our install. As we go into the portion, we're going to go ahead and go to our update. We're going to go ahead and check. Express. Let it do its thing. Shouldn't be much longer for as far as the way that the news will come into situational points. Yes, of course, I would like you to allow this app. Windows, you're asking too many questions. You need to just listen. I got you, dog. You just need to listen. Yes, I do. And then our installation begins. So it should be kind of cool. I'm wondering in curiosity for as far as the situational points and changes of what we'll get into with the install. I don't think it'll be too much more past a few things that are like probably broken. And if increasement for Borderlands 3 as we can see right here. And then I need to start setting up for Borderlands 3 because in 5 minutes it should go live and I need to set up all my fun stuff and SEO and tags. So if you're a Borderlands fan, you can probably watch me later on with a few buddies play that, like probably in the next few hours. So it should be pretty fun. But besides that point, this update so far as we're going to install, I'm hoping will be a safe haven for my Radeon card. With the last one improving FPS, but only on Time Strike and eliminating us away from, or Time Spy and limiting us from Fire Strike. There is going to be a conundrum that we could possibly get into where maybe the 19.9 saga is just not like Fire Strike friendly, and they won't even be able to address that until the next update, which will be our, I suppose, the very end portion in 19.10, which we will get into. And Borderlands 3, I feel like for the install that they gave me was like 39 gigs, and I was just like, wait, this is the next generation game? But then you look at the pasteling graphics, and it was never meant to be an extraordinarily CG heavy game, so it's like, I kind of get that, but I also feel like there's going to be updates that are encumbered into that as well, so who knows, we'll see some fun stuff as it evolves. As you can see, my screen got a lot darker right after that install. That was very interesting. We'll end up doing it like a quick reset of the computer just so things run smoothly. I've noticed that with anytime I do it with AMD, it already suggests that I do like a reset, and I've noticed that with any kind of technology after installs, resets usually do the best as far as allowing the software to get a fresh playing field of it just being there. Sometimes you just don't get that. Sometimes you just get that destruction on wheels. But I am hoping after this install goes completely successful, which it just did. It asked me to reset. Good job, Radeon. I'm going to go ahead and hit a reset. And then after that portion in time. Now, for most people that are joining in on that portion, if you want to take a gander, we can at the quick news article of what we already had for as far as this new portion. There's some people already here on the portion. See here, jump right back over as everything's resetting, and I get it, you guys can gals can kind of take a look at this, which is boasting its FPS improvement for 16 from the comparison of last time. And again, these tests were run on 1080p. as well as the enabled portion of the refresh rates, fixed issues, and some Radeon card issue fixes that they had directly throughout it. Now I'm noticing that it's not even, it should have reset. I feel like it's resetting, but it's taking a lot longer than what it normally should. This is rather strange. I might have to go reset the breaker box. It may have tripped something. I'm wondering why the computer isn't resetting. It should be resetting. What are you doing, Threadripper? Oh, okay. It was tired. It's doing this thing now. Anyways, going back down to there's some known issues that are basically out there with the toggling of the HDR live, as well as the portion of the 240 hertz for a lot of people out there that have been wanting to get into that, unfortunately. They did their AMD lab testing on the Borderlands, and that's where they got their conclusive 16% on this update versus the last. Now I see what it did. That's why it took how long. And as we're back inside of the Radeon overlay, let's go ahead and see where we can go for as far as the portion of interlude and all that fun stuff. Alright, so going back to 3D Mark, we have everything installed. I should just let it get a second. I'm gonna try Fire Strike right off the gate, just because I kind of feel like that would actually be a lot more interesting for as far as the way it would go. Because I want to know if it works or not, damn it. Come on, DirectX 11. I know you can do it. I'm curious now if it's even gonna work. Because I guarantee if I installed an older OS driver, it probably would. So far so good, but it always came up on the second hangout test. So this one will probably pass with flying colors, but if we're going to see anything with the instability, it's going to be right after this testing portion. Okay, and let's see what we're going to get for as far as the portion. Alright, so far so good. Seems like we may actually be able to pull out of this ahead of the ball game for as far as the way we're working. I think this is the end of the test, and I think this update may have fixed Fire Strike. No, it didn't. There's the hang-up. So there's something with the DirectX 11 that's messed up. Because it shouldn't be doing this. This is rather interesting. guess I have to do one more reset and then we can finally get into like the freaking gameplay. This is horrible. Man, I'm surprised no one else has figured this out. Like with the Radeon updates, and they've been having issue with the fire strike. Like, yes, I would like you to reset computer for the last time, please. Do what I tell you. Do my bidding. Um, but yeah, this is rather interesting. I would like to. I would like a lot more, like, I guess, reviewers to figure this out, to find out what's going on with this, because maybe this is something where it's tailored to where they locked it out on it, or maybe rather, 3D Marks is needing to update to the increasement of what they did for the other one, because otherwise it just runs directly on DirectX 12 really well, and it's not running directly for as far as what I'm wanting to do. This is rather strange. Like, this is the second time too, which makes me want to install another variation on the computer and see if it will run, and then have a direct comparison over and over again, because it could be maybe, I mean, I don't think any of the other, let's see here, drivers are installed. Yeah, I took care of all the old drivers that were there from NVIDIA. Usually you always want to do that, delete them when you swap out cards. And prior to that, I already had the other one that was there working, so it, like, that doesn't make sense to me. 19.91 was installed directly on the other one, and the 19.8.2 worked perfectly fine when it was like in the Intel mode for as far as that. And if I remember correct, I ran some strikes tests on the situation too. So I'll have to see if like the 19.8.2 is still installed directly the raw portion on my hard drive, and then I can just reinstall and see if that works later on. Not on this stream. I'll have to do it later on because I want to keep this short. We're already coming up close to the 40-minute mark, and I need to run some benchmarks. So with that being said, since we know Fire Strike is pretty much trash for us and we're going to have to rely on our time strikes in order to compare it to see if we get any boosts on this situation. I'm guessing that we'll probably see maybe a hair increasement here and there, but like, I don't know, I like the 19.91 and 19.92 like after we see some results, of course. But like, it seems like if there are certain application hangups, and it's already showing in its case in like a very renowned testing like program, there's got to be something happen on this situation with the DirectX. So like, I suppose intertwinement, not good, not a good look. I can't see anything that doesn't look super smooth, but it definitely does look like it's coming across the way pretty well. I'd like to think that there are certain shutters, though, I'm starting to notice from the naked eye. But that happened rather where the palm trees were, as it was kind of cascading over to the left. You could see a tiny bit of frame rate, like, tear. Okay. Test 1 down, test 2 up. Then we should be able to do the extreme, and we'll benchmark the two that I did, the pre and post, just to take a look to see the increasements. I do really, really want to see like what we're going to get into SAM play for as far as that. I feel like we'll probably get like some pretty good layout. I'm like trying to look around to see if I can see anything tearing on the test tube, but it doesn't look like it. In fact, actually, it looks better than normal. Like it likes more on the screen. Interesting. I wonder if that's like a Vulkan attribute from the last one, and then they just tuned it. It always says this is a good job. The 2950X just, well, there's a reason why I love that processor. It takes good care of me. So, validation warning. I already know it's going to tell me that it's not the correct OS. Score, following anomaly, driver not approved. Why am I not surprised? AMD drivers and this don't get along at all. I've noticed that versus the NVIDIAs. I always end up having issues. So looking at our compared scores, it went down. It actually went drastically down by 30 points. So it doesn't seem like these are faring really well. And this is the one I ran right prior to it, where it would have just been your normal time spy. So you can see that literally went down by 30 points, like back to back for as far as 1080p versus that. So this was very tailored to just Borderlands and nothing else. Like, but let's go ahead and run a benchmark on the 4K and see what we get. If it's anything like the rest, and we might, maybe, like, because it seems like they did their testing on the 1080p and a lot of people game on 1080p, so it could just be the attribute of what they're seeing. But I want to be honest with you, like this is already seeming like a mess. Like they're gonna have to fix it in the next update driver for the Fire Strike not working, or either 3D Marks is going to have to update something that intertwines with the AMD technology of the shift over what they are doing in the coding, or B, which would be more forthright, AMD just fixes it. Hope. We'll see. I don't know. Everything all said and aside, one of those things where it's just like, damn, I don't know, this could be a hot mess. Alright. Coming towards this tail end part, we'll start to see if we can rise or low. But it seems like it's staying within the 30s, which isn't horribly bad for this car. It's actually pretty good for as far as the way they can introduce itself to a lot of fatiguing points. So this should be the make or break text. Because if we get past this test and it doesn't end up getting anything more past it, that means this update not only still introduces the lack of finite DirectX 11 like tuning, it means it's directly tuned for DirectX 12. It's like they're almost looking at the past portion. So this probably is why a lot of people have been hitting me up in my forums asking about like what's up with like my card not working or not adopting really well to these things, because maybe it's like with mine, it's like, yeah, it's still kind of semi-new, it's Radeon 7, it's like under a year old, but you know, if we're already starting to see fatiguing points as it starts to branch in and fatigue or to prefer more of the performance updates from the RX 5700 versus what we have directly inside of here, which is showcasing our Radeon 7 card among other people that have the Radeon series that go into cards, regardless of what affiliated point you have. But now I'm curious from the fan base if you are having issues with the 19.91 and 19.92. I will ask people to drop a comment down below if you've gotten this far into the video. I'd be very curious to hear what your findings are on the card. It seems like the more and more these become more popular, the more techies are starting to reach out in the comments, which excites me. I love it. Like, I may not be able to respond as fast as I want to, but it definitely does help me, and I feel like it's more cooler to get in touch with the community this way. So let's go ahead and see what happens now. Yay, we know the processor is going to try its best. It's crazy, like, how when this CPU test kicks on, how fast the Radeon card drops. It's like, finally, I don't have to work. I can let that CPU take all the handle it. I can just chill. Seriously not doing anything. It's not even doing any lifting. Okay, final results. Is this worthwhile? So I think we actually did beat the other score on 4K. Let me look it up. I'm not 100% sure. I want to say if it was within a few points. Damn. That's hilarious. Anyway, so my results. Compare it side by side. So yes. So looking at the comparisons, Time Spy by itself, the 1080p, there's no increasement whatsoever. Looking at the 4K, it seems like it was able to utilize the lovely portion of CUDA cores and all the other fun things in a more applicable point for the GPU to operate at a very nice finite portion. So, and then there's still the issue with Firestrike not even registering. Like, that is bizarre to me. Like, I don't get why Firestrike is just non-recognizable. It's like it doesn't even finish. That's such an issue. But everyone, if you are new to the network, this is pretty much where I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. You can definitely hit a like, share, or subscribe. And if you do, who knows? Maybe I'll turn into an RTX 3080 Ti. That'd be cool. Like the best thing on the market. Not really, because it'd be really expensive. It'd be cool, but it'd be really expensive. Anyways, enough NVIDIA humor and subscription humor. Thank you everyone for staying tuned. It definitely seems like this update will work very applicable for Borderlands. If you are playing it in DirectX 12, you're going to see a lot of cool improvements. And in fact, you actually might see better improvements if you play it on 4K. I think there is some kind of like tuning to that will actually work really well. But other than that, this is your boy Mac signing out, saying I need to get ready for Borderlands 3. So yeah, that's my life. It's a fun life. But I'll see you guys and gals in the near future for more Radeon software updates.